Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be talking about this album's 30th anniversary, and it's from, well, one of my favorite bands of all time. As you can see by the title, today we're going to be talking about Horoscope by Overkill, the band's fifth album released on September 3rd, 1991 through Atlantic and Megaforce Records. And let's just go back to around 1989 with their previous album, The Years of Decay, which in my opinion is probably my favorite Overkill album. But it was around that time they had a little lineup change. Original guitarist Bobby Gustafson had left the band or was kicked out. From what I heard, he had like a feud with the two original members are still in the band, being Bobby Blitz and Dee Dee Verney. And with that, they actually recruited two guitarists to replace him, and I honestly think that that's pretty cool. And that's like, this is the first Overkill album to now have be a five-piece, and they still have five-piece members to this day. I mean, they've pretty much gone through different guitarists and drummers. And with this album, they got two new guitarists. They got Rob Canavino, who actually was Bobby Gustafson's guitar tech, and Merritt Grand, who was in another band called Faith of Fear. And I think they pretty much really do well. And honestly, it depends on the band, but having two guitarists actually sounds a lot more fuller and heavier live, especially if one's like doing a solo and the one's just riffing in the back. It pretty much just makes it sound a lot thicker and fuller and heavier live, and I just think it's pretty great. And this album, in my opinion, is a pretty good. And as you can see, I have my copy signed by Bobby Blitz and Dee Dee Verney, since, well, they're the only two members that are on this album that are still in the band, had them only sign it. But this album, I think, was a really pretty good album, coming off of Years of Decay. Like I said, it's my favorite Overkill album, but this album is a really great. It's like, I don't know, it's a weird time for like metal in the early 90s, because early 90s, a lot of people say thrash is dead, and it was around the time when the whole grunge movement came along with like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. But I think for me, Overkill just really just stuck to what they are, and they're pretty great, and they're still kicking ass to this day. Let's just say, just production wise, fantastic. Vocally, Bobby Blitz, Ellsworth, in my opinion, one of the best metal vocalists I've heard. He sounds just really great as always. Like, and still to this day, his voice hasn't changed at all, and I think it's superb. Guitar wise, from Rob Canavano and Merritt Gant, I think filling in those shoes of Bobby Gustafson were really hard, but I think both of them just really come up with some really great leads and soloing. And the bass-wise is pretty audible. Like, Dee Dee Verney's bass is heard pretty well, but it wasn't until, like, WFO where the bass is turned up way loud. And drumming-wise, Sid Falk. And this is actually the last album to have drummer Sid Falk on this album, because during the touring of this album, he left the band. But I think he did a really great job on this album. But in a really great way to end everything, his run with the band. So, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Coma. Now, Coma is a really killer song. The riffing is tight, and I just love like the slow kind of like build up. That you can definitely tell like this album is a lot more darker. And I saw them live last time, which was the last show I saw before right when the COVID shit happened. I think Dee Dee was playing a double neck bass, so I think that's done on a bass. I don't know I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a really darker way, but that just goes right into it. And I think Bobby's vocals have a really great presence here, and it's just the lyrics are pretty great. It's just, and the chorus is just really catchy. Yeah, it starts off slow and then just hits fast, and I think it's a great way to start off this album. Then we move on to Infectious. Now, Infectious is one of those songs that once you hear it, it gets stuck in your head, and you end up just I don't know. It's just a really catchy song. And then we go into Blood Money. Now, Blood Money has that kind of like singing along, just like you want to shout liar to yourself. It just straight off of Blood Money. Another great song. Then we move on to probably, in my opinion, one of my other favorite Overkill songs, being Thanks for Nothing. Starts off with a little sick little drum intro from Sid Falk. Okay, and I just say, like I said, this is the last album to have him on the drums, and he just does a really great job on that. And it just shows what Overkill do well best, playing just great thrash metal, well, as little as subtlety as possible. Even with sort of like the up-tempo songs, there's like different approaches, and this song, Thanks for Nothing, almost has a little bit of a punky kind of vibe to it. But overall, Thanks for Nothing, great song. Next on the album is called Bare Bones. Now this song kind of like shines with sort of like a spooky kind of like opening, and it just thrusts in sort of like a eerie kind of like mid-paced song. And this song sort of like conveys sort of like the feeling from separating real metal from like the radio friendly rock bullshit. Not to mention it has like a great ending of the song. Next up is the title track, Horoscope. Now, Horoscope is another kind of similar to Coma. Has a little bit of a darker kind of vibe to it. But it's also kind of like a more of a slower kind of song for Overkill. New Machine is up next. Now, New Machine offers a lot of like different structure changes in the drumming department. It just goes like in and out of tempo, just going back and forth from the speed to a slower kind of like beat hit. And really, if you're like a fan of drums, just go listen to New Machine. And this full type of like drum tempo changes, and Sid just remains wall tight in execution. And of course his last album with the band, like I mentioned yet again. But this is like a good way to exit his just phenomenal work on here. Next up is Frankenstein. Now, Frankenstein is actually an instrumental, and this is actually a cover song originally done by Edgar Winter, because it has that kind of like swinging 70s. I don't know what the year the original came out, but Overkill just really did their own thing to it and not try to stick to how the original was. But I just think Frankenstein's a really great instrumental. Next up is Liv Young Die Free. Now, in my opinion, one of the best songs on here, similar to like the first couple songs that started Horoscope, but better. It just has a really great chorus, a nice solo, and one of the best Overkill songs on here. Nice Day for a Funeral has a kind of like a bludgeoning, doomy kind of like riff, which leads into almost kind of like a balladic part, but just more faster, more melodic segment. I think it's really done well. And then we close things out with Solitude. Now, this pretty much gives a more performance from Bobby Blitz, just as like the previous album, Years of Decay. But I just really just how the song sort of begins to amp up and then slows back out. And then there's like a really great solo that just top it all off. Now, overall, Horoscope by Overkill, pretty good album. Really great follow-up to the Years of Decay. So if I had to give this album a score, I'm going to give Horoscope by Overkill a solid 9 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the album, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.